Hi, this is Professor Paul Knoepfler here at UC Davis. I'm thinking of starting a new feature on my blog, which is a video where maybe once or twice a month I try to answer readers' questions from the blog. And so today's kind of the first edition of that, kind of an experiment. No, I'm not at UCSD right now, I'm at UC Davis, but I did go to grad school at UCSD and had a really good time doing research there. So I have here a trusty list of questions that readers of my blog and others have asked me either by email or in comments on the blog. And so today I'm going to try to tackle 5 questions, and hopefully you guys will enjoy watching this, and you can weigh in the comments if you disagree or have other things to say. So question number 1, and just a note, since most of these questions come from people who might be patients, I can't really say who they are, but we'll just pretend this first question comes from Bob from Toledo, Ohio. And the question is, do adults have pluripotent stem cells, or maybe even totipotent stem cells? So good question, I guess. It's been around for a long time. You might be familiar with V cells, very small embryonic stem cell-like cells, or Mu cells, or others. And despite papers to the contrary, such as from Irv Weissman's lab and other evidence, some people still believe in these cells. I have to say I'm not really a believer in pluripotent cells like that in the adult human body. It just doesn't make sense to me why we would have such cells. I'm not talking about germ cells. I'm talking about just cells floating around that someone can isolate, that have true pluripotency. So no, I don't think those are real. Maybe someone someday will prove me wrong conclusively, but for now I think the answer is probably no. All right, so this question comes from many different people that I get all the time, and that is, should I go to stem cell clinic XYZ to get a treatment? And so by XYZ I mean, just a clinic near them, maybe a clinic in another state. And my answer is usually no, right? It's not really a good idea to go to these clinics for a number of reasons. Strictly economically, I think it's a waste of money. They charge $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 or more. Sometimes they'll tell you after the fact you should get more than one treatment, and act as though giving you a slight price reduction on the second or third treatment is somehow them being really nice to you. But even more importantly, these kinds of treatments pose serious health risks. We really don't know what's in that syringe that they're going to inject you with. Maybe it's your own cells, but maybe they contaminated them, or maybe they changed them in such a way that those cells won't behave the way we all hope they will, and they could harm you by growing a tumor or leading to an immune reaction. And so what it really comes down to is data, and I don't see data from these clinics so far really conclusively proving that these things are safe and effective. And as you probably know, pretty much none of them have finalized FDA approval for what they're doing, so that raises some other issues, like, is that really the right thing to be doing? So at this point, the answer to that, go to a clinic, get a treatment, I think it's really unwise. So another question I get from time to time that I thought I would just put out there almost for fun is, which stem cell stock, Paul, should I buy? And so I'm not going to really answer this one. I know why I ask it if I'm not going to answer it, but I'm not here on this blog to recommend certain stem cell stocks. I currently don't have any investments of those kinds myself. I think it's an exciting sector, but one where you're probably more likely to lose money than get money. But that being said, that kind of investment can help drive the field forward. We need biotech, we need commercialization. Just if you go for that kind of investment, hang on to your hat. All right, so question number 4 is more almost like a philosophical one, and that is allogeneic versus autologous iPS cell research in future therapies. What's better? And so this is an interesting one, right? It's sort of like, well, it's not really like Pepsi versus Coke or something like that, but there are interesting questions here. And so I think when iPS cells were first discovered, reported 2006 for mouse, 2007 for human. Everyone kind of assumed we're going down this autologous path, right? We can make iPS cells, we can make truly personalized regenerative medicine. And that's really remained the assumption for many years. But recently in Japan, with Dr. Masayo Takahashi's trial, there's really been kind of a seismic shift there with them focusing more on allogeneic cells and perhaps having bank cells that can be used in a number of different patients, even though those aren't those patient cells. And so it'll be really interesting to see how those therapies go. Do you need immunosuppression? Meanwhile, others are really squarely focused on autologous use of iPS cells. And there, of course, the advantage is that may not require immunosuppression. There's been different stories, different publications over the years about immunogenicity of iPS cell derivatives. I think most likely, you're probably not going to need immunosuppression if you go the autologous route, and so many people are doing that. And so in the end, perhaps both approaches, depending on one's patient population, their genetic diversity and such, both approaches should be pursued. But I think at least on the allogeneic side, you really have to think about why go that route if you can just use human ES cells, right? Because those are widely available. There are many companies that have produced derivatives of those as well that are very useful. And so I think allogeneic iPS cells, are more directly competing with allogeneic treatments from human ES cells. So anyhow, we'll see how all of that pans out. But right now, I think the answer is kind of both. Let's go for both. So I'm going to wrap up with maybe not the funnest question, but very timely, and that is, Paul, what do you think Trump is going to do about stem cells? How is that, how are stem cells going to be affected in the new administration? So, tough question, right? I mean, we don't know. And so far, more than 1 month in, we haven't really heard a peep from, as far as I know, from anyone in the Trump administration about stem cells, about research, embryonic stem cell funding restrictions or anything like that. So I don't think it's a high priority for them. It may be as Tom Price gets settled in at HHS over time, maybe we'll hear some kind of executive order, or we'll hear something else that, unfortunately restricts that kind of funding for research. That's really important research. But then again, maybe it won't happen. I did a poll on this on my blog a while back, and people, the main answer, the most common answer at least, was that people didn't think that Trump was really going to do anything. But, they might. So we'll have to just see how that goes. So that wraps up today's Q&A with Paul about stem cells. Send me your questions if you have any, and I'll do my best to answer them in coming weeks. Have a good one.